Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy, Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. I'm back with a brand new Deku What If. What if Deku had a clone Quirk? Some might think that it's going to be basically twice as Quirk, but I'm going to do something a little different. Y'all probably kind of guess or kind of conclude what that will be based on the thumbnail if you just look at small little details. But with that said, hope y'all enjoy. I want to give a big shout out to the boy Xblick, who says he's going to come back in January sometime. So hopefully he does come back. Link will be in the description below. He does make some bangers. He's made some bangers. My personal favorite is What If Now Fumi was Gojo's reincarnation. That was a absolute heater. But yeah, I don't really got much else to say. Hope y'all enjoy. And that's about it. Let's get right into the what if. Let's get it. Izuku Midoriya. He's born with a loving mother and a father that is a bit absent. Izuku Midoriya finds that, well, he's in love with the idea of being a hero. He loves the hero All Might and believes that he'll be just like him when he grows up. At the age of only 3 to 4 years old, he's basically fanboying over All Might. The fact that he's so strong, he's so awesome, he'll save everybody. He brings down the crime rate so much, he'll save everybody and everything. But there's a hidden truth to hero society. There's a hidden truth about villains. Some villains are just misunderstood. Some heroes are not so hero-like. There are many things that people don't realize about hero society, and many things that people need to realize about it. But some quirks that are out there may be completely and utterly useless. Others may be actually useful in some regards. But what about one that is very useful but has severe repercussions? Well, that's what happens when you have villains. There are villains out there with insane repercussions and insane aspects about them. With that said though, Izuku Midoriya was born with a special type of quirk. A quirk very similar to a villain's, but one that wasn't as hurtful to himself. His quirk would be known as a clone quirk. When he goes to the hospital and his mother and him head over there and arrive to meet with a doctor, the doctor runs some tests and learns of his clone quirk, not knowing much about it though. He says that he can most likely make clones, but there's no guarantee that these clones will be in full control of Izuku. Will they have the same personality, same emotions? They're not sure. Izuku is definitely taken back by this. He doesn't really understand the whole complexity of it, because if he can't control all the clones, what does that say for basically what they're going to do? He never knows. What if they get him in trouble later on? Well, obviously he doesn't know for sure. He's just a little kid. He's just worried about certain things, and his definition of getting in trouble is getting mud on his shoes. So it's not too big of a deal at this moment, and maybe won't be a big deal at all in the future. But Izuku would just learn about his quirk, try to use it, and eventually at the age of about 8 or 9, he would use it for the first time ever. He would separate himself, and the clone that he makes has these red eyes. They're just like his green ones, but the tint is red instead of green. He's confused. He waves one hand and the clone waves as well, and he asks if the clone can understand him. And Izuku's clone responds coherently, but it's odd. It's as if Izuku responded in his mind, but it's all on his own. He's not actually doing it. It's just a subconscious thing. So it's as if he is connected to these clones. He then asks the clone some questions, and these responses are a little bit more anger filled, you could say. They're more angry. He asks if the clone could do homework for him, and the clone says yes, but he would rather not, and he would, if he would just be like, not lazy, Izuku could do it himself. And when he hears this, he realizes the clone has different emotions compared to Izuku, maybe ones that are deeper down within his body or deeper down within his personality. Izuku does get mad. Of course he does. Everyone does. And in terms of homework, he's like, I don't want to do homework. So that's the version that's mad. He's mad, but he'll do what Izuku says. It's interesting, actually. Izuku tries to separate himself again, but can't. It's too much for him. He's actually a little tired out already trying to even do it, so he won't be able to actually separate himself again. He does ask a few more questions to this guy, to himself, which is kind of odd when you think about it. But he does ask some questions to the anger version of Izuku, but nothing really comes out of it. He doesn't learn anything that he doesn't know already. It seems like these versions of him know exactly the amount he does. It's just the emotion of a certain version of him is inflated. Izuku thinks that this is a-okay, and he goes to grab his can or some sort of bottle to open, but he can't get it open. He thinks that it's too tough. It's like maybe it's glued or something. But he then takes it, or the anger version of himself takes it, and he twists the cap off, and it shatters the cup or the bottle entirely. It actually rips the plastic straight off. Izuku immediately thinks that maybe these clones have different quirks. Yes, he has a clone quirk, but Izuku just made a clone. He has red eyes, he's full of anger, and he just ripped the bottle in half. Most humans can't do that, and he's so young. He's like 8-9 years old right now. So how is he able to do something like that? Well, Izuku comes to the conclusion that this person or this version of himself must have some strength enhancement quirk. Izuku then uses his subconscious to control him slightly and actually basically forces him to pick up something that's very heavy and then smash it in his hand, in which he does just that. And it smashes a sort of brick-like fabric or a brick-like material in an instant. This is crazy. He's so strong. But then as he does this, Izuku's clone, the one with red eyes, disappears. He's confused, but then he collapses slightly to the ground and sits down. He's exhausted. Whoa, this is insane. Well, of course you're exhausted. You're dealing with two versions of yourself at the same time. This is something Izuku wasn't ready for, and something he didn't really understand. And especially when you're utilizing a quirk, it drains stamina even more. So now he has to worry about the drain of his clones and also the drain that the clones have with their own quirks. Something is gonna get very confusing. But later on, he would start using clones to help him with daily chores and also help him with homework, just to get things done. But of course, since things are based off of Izuku's knowledge, there's things that Izuku doesn't know. So he can't just have his clones do work for him that he doesn't understand. So basically ignoring class and doing stuff like that is definitely out of the picture, because if he sends a clone there, the chances of them actually learning those things are pretty darn low. And this is something that Izuku doesn't even want to risk anyways. So he doesn't. He learns the best he possibly can, and of course, in terms of working on stuff, in terms of homework, he would do homework and then he would have his clone do the other half of homework. So it's like they're splitting the work, and since they're built on the same subconscious, the clone thinks that this is a great idea as well, which is perfect. You're not going to get some evil clone of yourself saying that he's the real one and trying to kill you. So yeah, I mean, who would kill people over homework? With that said, Izuku starts training, frankly just working hard and trying to get his studies up. With the help of one of his clones, and the only clone he can really actually make at this moment, he's able to do schoolwork and train at a way higher level. Using his clone, he can also train just physical, just fighting somebody else. Yes, his clone has super strength, but he's able to subconsciously make him hold back so that they can have a pretty or relatively decently fair fight. This does get him a good bit of training before anything happens, and throughout the years of basically elementary and middle school and heading up to the end of middle school, Izuku would get a lot of progression done. Throughout this time though, Izuku wouldn't be the most popular kid in the school. By far would be kind of a weirdo in a way. They all think that he just talks to himself and so on and so forth, and Izuku's only friend is kind of himself, which is kind of sad, but still, he's kind of the weirdo, but he's not really hated or made fun of that much. Bakugo, on the other hand, just, he's the best and this on and so forth. But with Bakugo does mess with him, tease him, make fun of him. It's really the same thing with Bakugo. Nonetheless, though, Izuku continues his training, and as they approach the end of middle school, he's at a pretty good spot, he feels. With his solo clone with red eyes and super strength, he feels that there is a good chance for him to get into somewhere like, well, UA. Somewhere that he really, really, really wants to get into as we speak. Izuku on the last day of middle school would listen to his teacher as he speaks about, well, giving out these job assessment tests. But, of course, he decides not to do that. He throws the papers in the sky and says he knows that all of them want to go the hero route. The hero route is something that every kid wants to go. Good Quirk, bad Quirk, no Quirk. I mean, we've seen it all along. Every kid in Japan practically wants to be a hero. And maybe that has a lot to do with All Might, or maybe that has a lot to do with some of these top heroes that people idolize. But Izuku especially wants to be a top hero in the future. And Bakugo, though, makes it clear that nobody else should be trying for UA, and many of the people there believe that to be kind of true. Nobody should try to get to UA, because frankly, Bakugo has that on lock. There's no way that anybody else would get into UA, but Izuku thinks otherwise. Izuku wants to try for UA no matter what. He wants to be a pro hero, and this right here will be the biggest and the first step to getting there. Of course, Bakugo mocks him, saying that he shouldn't even try. He's just some loser, but Izuku doesn't care. Izuku's going to push his limits and try his absolute hardest to get there, which is exactly an Izuku or a Deku thing to do. After getting berated by Bakugo, of course, I mean, it's just the Bakugo thing to do. But the teacher, of course, tells him to calm down, quiet down, and so on and so forth. And there's a couple things he begins to explain past just obviously them wanting to be heroes. But beyond that, there's really nothing too important. The day would finish up and Izuku would continue writing in his journal, thinking about what is ahead and what is next. He begins to imagine and think about different versions of himself, those of different eye color and those of different versions and different quirks. Now this is something Izuku has thought about a little bit, but not to the point that he's really instilled it in his own mind. Maybe that's what's needed. And he begins to focus as hard as possible, trying to think about what's going on. And as he heads under this bridge, he continues to focus more and more and more until his focus is broken. And that's because something has just busted its way through a manhole cover. He turns around to see a giant sludge villain. The sludge villain, with his menacing voice, tells Izuku that he needs his body. Izuku tries to run away as fast as possible. He's terrified. He's freaked out entirely. Izuku begins to try and think, I need to run faster. I need to go. I need to escape. As he begins to think this, as he can feel the sludge villain breathing down his neck, his eyes begin to change color, changing to this yellow, electric-y like color. And as it does, his body splits. His hand reaches out to his own hand, grabbing onto it as they bolt off, escaping from the sludge villain. And from nearby, they can hear a roar of some sort, and then a smash, a crash, and a giant gust of wind slam into a building. And as little pieces of green goo fly up above, they are 3 blocks away staring at what just occurred. Izuku is completely in shock, completely in horror in a way, but he turns to see the person holding onto his arm is himself, a version of himself with yellow eyes. But that version collapses, disappears, and reemerges back into Izuku almost instantly. A version of Izuku that has an energetic personality, that has a quirk based around extreme or super speed. Izuku is shocked. He was able to, get away. He was able to escape. Now this is insane. This is something he hasn't even thought about, something that he didn't know what would happen. Now he has 2 versions of himself he can create, 2 versions that he can make. But Just as he thinks about this, he immediately has to sit down, extremely winded, and can feel that his body is tired, as if he's going to fall asleep. He pulls up his phone and he calls his mother, calls her and tells her exactly what occurred and what happened. He's safe, he got away, but he's extremely tired. So tired to the point that he feels like his legs are jello. He doesn't know if he can even walk. And his mother immediately comes by, helps him, and gets him in the car as they go back home. She helps him get ready and get iced up and basically help him feel okay once again. Izuku would feel okay relatively quickly at that, maybe only a couple days. It was just the strain he put on his body using that part of his quirk. It was as if he made a clone that he was unbeknownst to, a clone that he had no idea worked. And when he made that clone, on top of that, the strain that would put, he used the maximum amount of power to escape. The clone used the maximum amount of power to make sure that they were safe. So, of course, that would put a strain on his stamina like crazy, but at the same time, it allows Izuku to see his current ceiling, his at a point of time where he is at this moment. Izuku likes the feeling and enjoys the thought of this. He can make himself so strong, make his clones extremely powerful. He really can. And maybe there's something more that he's missing, but that's something he'll have to figure out some other time. For now, he'll recover and he'll begin training, getting ready, and just trying to focus on getting prepared for what's ahead. But when that happened, when he showed his clone quirk, there were people watching. Someone actually saw this happen. It was actually one of the pro heroes, one of a minor pro hero. All Might even asked what that flash of light was when the person just disappeared. What was it? A pro hero would walk up and explain to him exactly what happened. It was a boy with green hair. One of the boys had yellow eyes and the other had green eyes. They were exactly the same beyond that. They didn't have different clothes. They didn't have, different hair colors. They didn't have anything. It was just the eyes. That was it. It must have been the same person. All Might is interested. This person, he must have some sort of quirk that allows him to duplicate himself. Maybe he has some sort of speed quirk. Maybe that's the reason why it looked like there was two of them. Now this person right here, they're talented. They have to be. For a pro hero to have their jaw drop to the ground. Someone like this, or whoever this person is, this green-haired boy, he must be talented. But All Might can't really think about that much. He still needs to find not only his successor, but he needs to find out what the hell he's going to do with his time limit. So All Might begins to try and find that so-called successor. Find that one person that he can give his quirk to. And eventually, he would decide on that one person. He would decide on someone that is not necessarily very known, and not necessarily even in Japan. Izuku, on the other hand, is currently training at a couple beaches, a couple parks, and anywhere that he can kind of be alone. Eventually, he would decide to head over to Dagobah Beach. Dagobah Beach, a place that he's basically worked out before, so he thought that nobody would be here. He begins to run down the pier, focusing, trying to get that electrical feel, trying to get that speed feel once again to make that version of himself, the clone, appear. And when he does appear, they both begin to train together on their speed, their technical ability, and so on and so forth. He tries to summon a second quirk on top of, or a second version of himself on top of that, but his clone quirk falls short and he's unable to do so. He falls to the ground and he basically is underneath the pier at this point. As he does this, he hears a voice from the side. A voice talking to a girl, a young girl, maybe around the age of Izuku, maybe a little bit older. And they begin to speak about it. They're talking about a second year at a high school that is basically preparing students, or basically students of UA, for the next generation and the next generation of heroes. And this person sounds familiar to Izuku, like he's heard him before. The voice continues to speak, saying that they're going to gift this person power that it's going to be extremely hard to maintain, so they're going to need to train extremely hard, but they should be ready. And they have capabilities beyond that they could possibly believe. this person, this female, this girl is extremely intelligent. All Might says this and says that she'll find her way. She'll find her way relatively quickly, and she will surprise everybody. Izuku would then creep out a little bit to look who it is. Oh my god. That's All Might. Izuku would kind of have a panic attack as he steps out from beyond the pier, and he kind of waves. Hey, I overheard what you guys were talking about. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I was actually running earlier and kind of was taking a break under the pier. And once he says this, they both kind of freak out, asking how much he actually heard. And Izuku says that he didn't hear enough to basically get them into any trouble, so not to worry. Whatever secret they're hiding, he says that he doesn't know it. He promises that all he knows is that, well, the symbol of peace is training whatever her name is. She introduces herself. Her name is Melissa Shields, son of David Shield. And for what Izuku knows, well, David Shield is pretty famous, and his daughter is extremely intelligent, on the bridge of prodigy-like. Izuku is just shocked, extremely shocked. Why would someone like that, that's from America, come to Japan to train with All Might? Wow, that's something definitely crazy. Izuku says that it must feel like a privilege to train with someone as high tier as All Might, and Melissa agrees, saying that it is definitely a privilege, and she's going to take advantage of every moment she can. She's going to use the time they have here to become the best hero possible. She says that she's going to be going to UA as a second year, of course, because she actually is a little bit older than Izuku is. Izuku says that he'll be trying for UA, and that he'll be trying basically to get through the entrance exam. All Might looks at him once again and asks him something. Hey, are you the one that's ran away from the sludge villain? And Izuku is shocked and asks if he's in trouble, but All Might shakes his head. He says that it's actually impressive. He wanted to know what his quirk is, what is it like, and what did he do? Izuku explains it entirely and says that there's still aspects he doesn't understand, but at the same time, he's actually was able to do that clone, or make that version of his clone out of a whim, out of a need. And that's what he was able to do, and he was able to save himself. Well, luckily. And luckily enough, All Might was following close behind. Izuku smiles slightly, and All Might nods, saying that he's definitely equipped to get into UA, and he'd love for Melissa to have a training partner. And of course, this needs to be under wraps. He can't talk about it to anybody or anyone, maybe his mother, and that's about it. Izuku agrees, of course, and All Might says that not only that he'll get amazing training, he'll even recommend him for UA. Izuku is shocked. Wait, really? A recommendation from All Might? Izuku is completely taken back, and All Might says as long as he lives up to his end of the bargain, of course, and as long as he can, as long as All Might can see potential in the boy, he'll definitely recommend him, but he'll be brutally honest. Izuku says he wouldn't want anything less from someone of his caliber. He wants that criticism. He wants to get better. All Might smiles, and he knows this kid is dead serious. Izuku wants to get stronger. He wants to get more powerful. He wants to be able to be a great hero. So the training commences. Izuku uses versions of himself, or clones, one that has strength enhancement and the other that has a speed enhancement, or basically super speed, to help Melissa train on top of that. They do physical training and they do combat training and so on and so forth. Melissa even coming up with different inventions that she feels may help Izuku along the way or way later on in time. But these are just blueprint ideas. These aren't created. She doesn't have her lab or anything like that she can really do. And Izuku even questions if she's going to be part of the support course as well, in which she says, yes, it's going to be a lot of work, but for her to do both, it would be a great opportunity. Izuku thinks that's a fantastic idea. He wishes that he was intellectually inclined like her. It would be amazing. But unfortunately, he's not, which is fine. He doesn't really care. He is a pretty smart kid, and he has some good breakdowns in his notebook, in which Melissa definitely would compliment, but nowhere near Melissa's level. they're both nerds, but Melissa is just, twice the nerd in a way. Izuku, though, would continue this training throughout the 10 months, and All Might sees potential in the boy. Insane potential. So he lives up to his end of the bargain, giving him that recommendation. And let's just say a recommendation from All Might just kind of gets you in for free. You don't need to take no tests. You don't need to do any of that. And Izuku even meets with the one and only Shota Aizawa, Eraserhead. Eraserhead would actually basically speak with Izuku back and forth a little bit, and even speak with Melissa. He definitely favors Melissa, but he can see how Izuku definitely caught the eye of All Might. Izuku makes his clones and is asked to do so, at least trying to make both of them, and he does actually pretty easily now after the ton of training he went through. And after doing that, Izuku actually watches as Aizawa activates his own quirk. And as he does this, it actually only works on one of them. It's weird. When he uses it on the real Izuku, it doesn't actually erase the other Izukus. It just erases the quirk that is within Izuku. So the clones are still there, but it's odd. It's as if it doesn't even affect Izuku at all. There's no point. And actually, it kind of does affect him. All it really does when he looks at the real Izuku is it cancels out the making of more clones. So if you catch Izuku with erasure before he can make a clone, he won't be able to make clones at all, which is definitely something to think about. But he would have to cancel the other one's quirks for it to actually matter. So Izuku would have to be ignored, or the main Izuku would. The one with the red eyes, it would get rid of his strength. The one with the yellow or the sparkly kind of electricity eyes would get rid of its speed. Aizawa is interested in this. Very unique quirk, and it's very interesting. He doesn't really pry on it too much, and he says that the training at UA will benefit him tenfold, including the training will definitely benefit Melissa as well. Aizawa makes it clear that he does want to have those two, Melissa and Izuku, continue training, because they will see benefits that nobody else will. The chemistry they've built, at least in terms of fighting together and actually basically sparring, it seems like it's perfect for Melissa. And at this point, Izuku would kind of get a bit of a grip on what Melissa's quirk is. At least the idea that it's a strength enhancement allows her to increase her speed by a lot, and being how smart Melissa is when she gets One for All, which Izuku doesn't know it's One for All. He just knows that she has some sort of strength or speed enhancement quirk. She actually is pretty smart about the whole full cowling regard, being that she's already at 5 to 10% of full cowling. Because, well, she would have already came up with this idea far before All Might or Izuku would even think about it. With that said, though, the first day of UA would eventually creep up and would eventually arrive. Melissa and Izuku would go their separate ways, but they would convene, or basically inconvene with each other every so often to make sure that they're up with their training and actually up with their sparring. Melissa would love to make support items for Izuku, and that's definitely something she'll be doing, making him a suit very similar to All Might's, but adjusted so that it could actually benefit his quirks, which she's still in the midst of working on. So there's going to be a bit of a prototype coming their way, but other than that, there is some things that Melissa is very excited about, and so is Izuku. On the first day of UA, Izuku would arrive, and when he would enter the room, he would actually immediately see Bakugo. But Bakugo would run over, saying that, well, how did he get in? He wasn't at the entrance exam, he wasn't anywhere. He must have cheated, he's a liar. He said he wasn't, or that he was going to UA, he didn't even show up, and now he's here? As Aizawa would arrive after all the students after, Bakugo would even point this out, saying how did a loser like him get in without even taking the entrance exam? Aizawa looks at him and looks at Izuku. Aizawa points toward Bakugo and tells him to sit down, shut up, and he'll tell him. Izuku sits down as well, and Aizawa quiets the whole class down. Look, I don't mean to put a target on your back, Mr. Midoriya, but if you really would like to know, Bakugo, if you really want to know, well, he was recommended. Bakugo would say, what kind of pro hero would recommend that loser? And Aizawa would smirk. The type of pro hero that's, well, it's the number one. All Might himself recommended that kid. Now, with that said, can you shut your damn mouth? As Aizawa says this, the whole class deafens. They're silent. Izuku doesn't say a word. It seems that Aizawa knew that at this point, it didn't really matter if they knew that that All Might recommended, and All Might wouldn't have gotten mad at Aizawa by any means. So, Izuku's not going to take a fall for this at all. Aizawa smirks slightly and says that they have some competition. It seems that All Might himself thinks that this guy right here is pretty talented. So, they're going to see how talented everyone else is. Aizawa says they're going to have a bit of a competition. They're going to basically go through a physical assessment, but this will be a quirk assessment, showing how strong each one of the quirks are and whose quirk is the strongest and who's the best. Izuku listens closely as Aizawa says that, but whoever gets last place will be expelled. They all think that they're all high and mighty now. They all think they're special, and that's all hero schools want to do is hype them up and think that they're just all this amazing and future of hero society. You're not the future. You'll have to get past me if you really want to make that a reality. Of course, Aizawa, as stern as always, makes this abundantly clear. If you want to be a pro hero, you got to get by him first. And if you want to be a top pro hero, well, you're gotta get ready to go through hell. With that said, this is where we're gonna end part 1. And if you enjoyed part 1 of What If Deku Had a Clone Quirk, make sure to show some love, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. The YouTube algorithm loves seeing comments, loves seeing watch time, loves seeing likes, all that stuff. It all helps. So I appreciate it. I love all y'all, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.